Welcome back, y'all. So today I'm going to be installing LMR's 3G 130 amp alternator with their power upgrade wire kit as well as the bracket. So first things you'll want to do, obviously I'm missing radiator, belt drives and all that, but so that's really kind of irrelevant. It does make it easier, more room and whatnot, but first things you'll need to do is go ahead and disconnect your battery. Get your serpentine drive off, your serpentine belt off with the 18mm socket. Then go ahead and disconnect your alternator connectors, which I'm gonna need a screwdriver. That I'm not gonna be able to do one-handed. But once you get that done, I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the tensioner off this bracket while it's still in the car, just because it's going to make it my life easier. So that should be the same 18mm that the tensioner bolt is, and I'm wrong. So before I go crazy, see? Okay, it's a 19. So I'm gonna get the tensioner off real quick. That was easy. I'll be putting that on a new bracket. Will require the new bolt. I'm going to go ahead and do this step by step. So there's two bolts holding the alternator to the bracket. Got the connector undone. Move that out the way for now. Those look like they are, that's a 14 and that's a 14. Sweet. There's a nut back there. So there is a nut that just popped off. So you might have to get a wrench on that nut, possibly, depending on if you're lucky or not. Grab that real quick. Set that aside for now. The other 14 up top. Sorry you're so far away, but that bolt's out. If I'm not mistaken, I just gotta pry it. There we go. That's the old alternator. Obviously it would take longer if you had to take all the other stuff off, but that's how easy it is to pull the old alternator out of the car. Next, I'm gonna get the bracket off. And I think it's 3 bolts, if I'm not mistaken. There's one there, which I think this car's actually missing a couple. So let me do some looking. I'll be back. Okay, I went ahead and removed the water pump hoses I don't know that you necessarily need to, but one would be kind of a pain without it. This one right here, put the light on it. This one would probably be a pain with that water pump hose in the way, but you probably could get it done. So there's 1, 2, 3. Looks like just 3 on mine. Bolts holding that bracket onto the car. So you don't even necessarily need to swap the bracket, but you would have to grind it, I think, right in this area. So I think you'd have to take it off regardless. But I'm gonna get to work on that. I think those are probably more 14s again. My ratchet fell. So let's see here. See if we can. This is not gonna be good lighting, but well, looks like 2 of them are 14s and 1 is probably 13. Yep. So I'm gonna crank on these and I'll be back. I'm gonna show you. So this is where, right there, if you look at this one, the factory one, that's where you would have to notch the bigger alternator. And what I brought up about the bolt and the unboxing, so this really should have come with the kit in my opinion, but you got to order this if you use this bracket, because the factory bracket is threaded for the tensioner. This one is not, so you need a bolt with a nut on it. So just a FYI, if you're going to be doing this with the bracket, you need to get that bolt. It just is what it is. So anyway, I'll take a pause because I'm actually resetting. I'm going to be actually doing the thermostat next, replacing the thermostat housing and the thermostat. But I will pick back up right after this once I get the thermostat out. All right, so the LMR bracket doesn't come with any hardware, so I'm going to have to reuse my factory hardware, which is not a big deal. I'm actually not going to be able to do this one-handed. Once again, I'm trying to set y'all so that this will kind of show what I'm doing. So I'm going to set this bolt in. The top driver's side, one closest to the center of the block. Get that started. Then I'll do the other one on the the outside of the head. Then the smaller one, get that in there. And just get these started. Which one have I got? Alright, so this is the 13, so that's the small one. I'm going to tighten this guy up. Okay. Find my 14mm socket, which is over here somewhere. There it is. I'm going to tighten these two down. Okay. Next, I'm gonna get the alternator ready, and I'll be back. Started doing the wiring. Directions say basically, I forgot, but basically you need to replace the stator and the regulator plugs. So this is the new regulator plug that comes with the kit. Let's see in the directions. This is the new stator plug. So I'm going to get to this. Basically, I still have to cut these off and this, and then I'll be splicing. So let me get those removed and start. I'll show you what splices to what at the end. As usual, I messed up on a couple of the butt connectors, so I had to redo them. But basically, you connect the stator plug, white wire, to the white wire on the regulator plug, splice those together. Then you just connect the green to green and the yellow to yellow on the factory harness, and then put these ring terminals on the black with orange stripe wires. So, what's next? Got to get the alternator in the car, and then I'll show you that. Alright, so the factory bolt, use the factory bolt and nut on the bottom of the alternator. On the top, you got to use the supplied nut and bolt, because again, much like the tensioner bracket I mentioned before, there's no threading provision on the factory bracket. So slide the factory one in, or the new bolt and nut in, and get those semi-tight. I gotta find my 14mm socket. Do that. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up this one, and then I'll get the bottom. They're both 14s on this, so okay, that's tight. This is a little awkward, but okay, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Now, I'm going to go ahead and connect my plugs. And once I get them connected, I will decide how I'm going to route them, because I'm probably going to tape these up since there's a good bit of excess. Now with the new wiring and the new alternator, you have a nut that you need to connect these two, the two black with orange stripe wires. Do this one first, and then get that guy on there. Now, I'm not done yet because I still have the power wire upgrade to do. So, all this is going to do is go from the alternator down and around okay, I think that's a 10. That's what those usually are. That's not a 10mm socket. That's a Okay. Now, this is all loose still. Don't mind that. This is going to run around the front, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to place it out the way. But I do need to go ahead and, as you can see, all this excess, I'm going to tape that up. So let me tape that up and I'll be back. To let myself run out of electrical tape. So I'm going to have to wait to tape those stator and regulator wires up for until I get to the store and get some. I'm also going to wait to run that power wire until I get the radiator in. I'm going to probably run this under the air box and then around the radiator with the factory wiring. That's what I've done in the past. And then I'll mount it, probably mount the thing like their direction state right around here, and then put it on the solenoid and be done with that. So let me get the next, I need to get the tensioner back on the bracket, and that'll probably, I'll be moving on to the radiator. So hold on. Okay, so basically I got the tensioner, and oh, I see what they're supposed to do. Okay, this is going to go a little bit different. The supplied bolt, or the bolt you order from LMR, has a square on it. Slide that into the tensioner because it has a square notch. Feed that in, so you can't mess up the tensioner because it has a hole that it goes into. Then run the nut up, and I probably should have checked to see what size that actually is before I tightened it or put it on there, but I have a suspicion it's the same as factory size. Yep. So tighten this sucker up. Actually, let me get my, I'll be back. I'm going to get my half drive ratchet. The tensioner's on. It's this 18 millimeter nut, or 19 millimeter nut. I did have to take it back off I forgot, I needed to put the water pump hoses back on first to give me some more room to work. Those were real fun. That's probably going to be all I get done today. Again, like I said, I need to get some more electrical tape for the to wire these, you know, to tape these all up, keep them kind of protected. And I'm going to run this, like I said, I'm probably going to run it under the air box, but I'm going to wait till I get the radiator and everything else back together. So, yeah. For the most part, I'm not done with this install because I still technically haven't wired it all the way up yet, but I'm taking a stopping point for today. So, I'll be back. Okay, so for the next part of the alternator install, I've got the wires, the big power wire routed. Obviously the air box is out. Got it zip tied down following the main, this other part of the harness, and I've got it zip tied in certain spots. You're gonna have a little bit extra if you route it the way I did, but that's okay because there's plenty of space in between the battery and the headlight to just stuff the extra down. Next, I'm going to have to mount the big circuit breaker, inline fuse, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to mount it roughly right around here. That way it's got plenty of clearance to get the washer fluid out and also get the battery out. As you can see, it shouldn't be a problem getting the battery out. So what I've got to do is I'm going to pilot hole the two mounting holes on each, the one on each side. And then I'm going to drill them with the self-tapping screws that came with the install kit and move on. So stay tuned, I'll be back. Okay, so as you saw, I tapped it with the drill, then used my little impact. It's a 3/8 socket for those self-tapping screws that come with the kit. All that's left now is to route this wire. I'm gonna route it down. It's kind of tight, but this is the easiest way to tuck this out of the way. Or most efficient way, I should say. Okay. Then I'm going to come back up, and this is the side that you hook it to. So I believe that's a 13. I'm trying to remember. I think that's actually a half. Nope, it is a 13, I bet. Hang on, let me figure out which size it is and I'll be back and let you know. So either a 14 or a 9/16 will work on these solenoid nuts. All I'm going to do is take the nut and the washers off and reconnect this once I get this power wire on there. All right. So if this was all you were doing to the car at the time, you would be putting, go ahead and put your battery back in. Now, I will say that if you had your radiator in the car, you would have to take the two radiator support brackets off to get the wire through and kind of wiggle the radiator out of the way. But since I'm doing all this at once, I'll obviously. So what would be left would be to put the battery back in, get the radiator resupported, and start the car and test your voltage. So that's pretty much going to be a conclusion for the time being for me. When I get everything else put together and the car running, I will show the voltage. I'll show you testing the voltage of the while it's running, see if the alternator works. But that's going to come, well, for y'all it'll be instantaneous. For me it'll be probably later on today. So I'll be back. Alright, so I've got the voltmeter up. I've got it stabbed into the negative. I'm going to put it on the positive, and there you go. We'll get right around 14 volts at idle, which tells me that the 3G alternator is doing its job. I will say, be careful. I should have known better when I was doing this, but when you follow the directions and by the picture right here, that is wrong. You want, if you're using the big 4-gauge wire, you do not want it on that post, but towards the, you want to put the post right here, okay? The reason being is your other wires are going to the black and orange wires are going from the alternator, also are going to that same post, and that's where you want everything. If you put the 4-gauge on it, it's basically a hot wire all the time, straight to the starter. You don't want that. Things started heating up really quick as soon as I hooked the battery up. So avoid that. You'll thank me later. But anyway, she's just running, letting her warm up. Gotta add some more water. There we go. All right, so until next time, I'll be back.